The 76ers have a major decision on their hands as they enter the 2025-26 NBA season. Right now, they're kind of between two different timelines. They have some good young talent and some aging veterans as well. They have to decide which direction they're going to go in sooner rather than later. Before we get into all that, I want you to get involved early on here on the show. Get your thoughts and your opinions down in the comments section. If you are ready to move on already from the Joel Embiid, Paul George era, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video so I can see how many of you are on that side. If not, that's totally okay, but comment why down below. And with that, let's get into today's show. You're watching 76ers Now by Chat Sports. Jake Chipper here with you. Appreciate you all for tuning in here on this Wednesday, August 6th, as we talk some Sixers. So, as I mentioned off the top, the main topic of today's show is this weird situation Philadelphia is in as they struggle between two different types of roster constructions, right? And there are two main timelines that you can kind of see within their personnel. Timeline number one is going all in on these veterans on this Joel Embiid, Paul George era, which has only been in Philadelphia as a pairing for one full season, focusing on those guys trying to win a championship, which was the goal when they signed Paul George just last offseason. That's the first timeline. But there's also another timeline that over the past couple of seasons has kind of been building up to the point where I think you could say the Sixers have one of the better young cores in the NBA, and that is shifting the focus away from Embiid, from Paul George, from the older veterans on this team, and going all in on these young guys. Tyrese Maxey, McCain, Edgecombe, of course, just drafted number 3 overall. Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, even Quentin Grimes you can throw in there when he resigns. So there's two different timelines that you can see on this roster right now, and they have to make a decision which direction they want to focus on. Now, why does Philly need to choose, right? I know some of you are probably wondering, well, why can't the Sixers just go about it like they are right now? They have some good young talent paired with these older veterans. Why can't they just go forward as the roster is currently constructed? And I'll tell you why. Because of how much young talent they have now, it's like the Sixers have just one or two young players who, could be good at some point. They need to decide which side they're going to focus on, because if you're not fully committed to either timeline, right? If you're not fully committed to going all in on the vets and trying to win a championship and going for these older players, or if you're not all in on focusing on giving these young guys playing time and reaching their potential and maximizing what they can do, then how can you ensure that either of them work? If you're not maximizing either of them, then you're really not focusing on either. It's kind of like when you have in the NFL, right? If you have two quarterbacks, you have none, right? If you're splitting the reps, you're not focusing all your energy on just one. It just doesn't work in this two timeline approach. And I think a great example for this is the Golden State Warriors, right? Let me turn back the clock a little bit and walk you through how the past few seasons have gone for Golden State. So let's throw it all the way back to the 2018-2019 NBA season. Of course, this is when the Sixers lost to the Raptors. In the playoffs, Toronto would go on to beat Golden State in the finals that year. And of course, we know Klay Thompson ended up getting injured. Kevin Durant ended up getting injured and leaving Golden State. It was a little bit of a weird time now after that whole Warriors dynasty. They're kind of going into a little bit of a reset and a one-year retooling to change the way the roster looked. So they head into next season. Obviously, no Klay Thompson as he was injured. Kevin Durant is off the team. And then Steph Curry only plays in 5 games a year as he deals with injury. The team is bad. They only win 50 games. And it's just not looking good for the Warriors at this point in time, coming off all the success they have had. But after that season, it was all, it didn't all happen for nothing. Similar to the Sixers last year, how they were so bad, but at least you got the 3rd overall pick. The Warriors ended up with the 2nd overall pick. That's huge, right? Coming off that down year, you lose Kevin Durant, you have these injuries, at least you have something to show for it in a way you can retool this organization. So what do? Do you draft at number 2? Or a lot of people were saying they should trade the number 2 pick at the time to try to get a win-now player because you still have Steph and Klay's coming back and you have Draymond and you're in this win-now window. They didn't do that. They drafted James Wiseman, number 2 overall. Obviously, not the right pick, right? Even at the time, people were saying, not so sure he should have been the pick at number 2. Now, he was a very highly touted prospect at the time. had no idea how his career would turn out. But not only were there better players available on the board they could have taken at number 2, but again, even at the time, a lot of people were saying they could have traded that pick to go all in during the Steph Curry era, and that's not what they decided to do. Now, the following season, Golden State wins 39 games. It's a slightly shortened season coming off of COVID. They finish 8th in the West. Steph Curry finishes 3rd in MVP voting, but they miss the playoffs. They lose in the play-in, I believe, to the Memphis Grizzlies. So 2 straight years of no playoffs for the Golden State Warriors. A year in which Steph was amazing this season. Again, 3rd in MVP, really down the drain because you decided to draft James Wiseman, who did nothing in his rookie season when he could have traded it for an impact player. But following that year, they still do land the 7th and 14th overall picks in the 2021 NBA draft, And you could have, once again, tried to package those picks, either maybe to try to move up for a higher impact player at the top of the draft, or package those picks to trade for more impact players, more win-now guys to help your timeline. Because if you have Steph Curry, right, you're going all in. You want to win championships while he is still in his prime and before he does start to age. But nope, they keep those picks. They draft Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody at 7 and 14. Now, despite this, despite the roster maybe not being as good as it once was, and the focus wasn't completely on the win now mode, right? At this point, the Warriors are kind of really going between those two timelines. You have the young talent of, Wiseman, and you just drafted Kuminga, you just drafted Moody. You have Jordan Poole on the roster as well. Those are your young guys, but you still have Steph and Clay and Draymond. They do end up winning the championship in the 2021-2022 season. Steph absolutely carries that team. They win their 4th ring as that group of him, Draymond, and Clay. And it's a great moment for Steph, right? A real legacy-defining ring for him, winning Finals MVP. But I think winning that ring kind of hid a lot of the issues that were prevalent on this Warriors roster, right? A player like Steph just absolutely carrying them masked the issues that the front office was really having at the time, that over the past few years, I think they have started to feel the effects of the poor decisions the front office made, kind of trying to ride between the two timelines instead of going all in on either the young guys or what they should have done, absolutely all in on Steph Curry. Because since they won that title, you can see they've been good by all means. They haven't been an awful team, but we haven't seen the same type of success. They haven't made a conference finals in the last few seasons. In 2022-23, lost in the semis. 23-24, didn't make the playoffs at all. And then this past season, lost in the semis once again. So they haven't been able to recapture the same success, even despite, this season trading for Jimmy Butler wasn't quite enough. And now you're at a point with this Warriors team where both timelines look bleak. And this is what I was talking about earlier, right? When you don't focus all the way in on either the young guys or the vets, you'll reach a point like this where now, man, the young guys haven't developed like you wanted to because they weren't getting as much playing time and run as you would have hoped, right? Jonathan Kuminga, who even knows if he's going to be on the Warriors at this point next season, but he hasn't developed like you thought he would. Moses Moody hasn't developed how he thought you would. Jordan Poole ended up getting traded after the whole Draymond Green incident, right? Like Trace Jackson Davis never developed like you thought he would. Even Brandon Podjemski hasn't quite had that upward linear progression how you thought he would. And then you look at the core you have right now. Yes, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, now Jimmy Butler, but Klay Thompson ended up leaving. Do we really think that this Warriors core can compete for a title this year? I personally do not think so. So this is what happens when you do not fully commit. And I don't want the Sixers to end up in that situation. That is why they have to make a decision. If you were in charge of the Sixers and you had to make that decision, let me know which way you would go. Would you prioritize the young guys and developing the young talent on this team? Type Y in the comment section. If you'd rather go all in, try to maximize on the weaker Eastern Conference this season and the talent this team does have, type V for veterans. My answer coming up just around the corner. But first, an insane deal on this 76ers pullover hoodie that I have to tell you guys about. Originally priced at $70 on sale for just $28. You are not going to find a better deal out there than the one on this pullover hoodie, and it looks clean. I know it's summer right now. You might be thinking, why do I need a pullover hoodie right now? Well, look, before we know it, it's going to be basketball season. It's going to start getting a little bit colder out, right? And by that time, this item will not be on sale like it is right now. Got to go to chatsports.com/76pullover. Take advantage of that deal before it's too late. I'll put that link in the comment section and description of today's show. So look, for me, I think the answer is pretty clear with the Sixers team. You have to prioritize the young talent. That is the only way to go about it. There is just too much uncertainty. And I'm a huge Embiid guy. I'll always stand up for him. I'll go to bat for him. One of my favorite players of all time. I think he's heavily disrespected. But you also have to be realistic. I think there's too much uncertainty around Embiid, around Paul George to go all in around them right now. And some of you might be like, oh, well, work for the Warriors, right? The Warriors won a title despite them not really prioritizing either timeline. Why can't the Sixers do that? Look, I love Embiid. At this point in his career, he is not Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry is a different animal. Not every team has a Steph Curry, and that's why you have to choose a direction. That's why they also haven't had as much success as previously. So, what does this actually look like for Philadelphia? If you are going to start prioritizing this young talent, how do you actually go about it? Do you just blow up the team and go in a full rebuild, go back to the process mode? No, I think it's a little bit different than that for this current Sixers squad. First, you absolutely had to prioritize playing time for the young core. I don't want to see Eric Gordon getting minutes over VJ Edgecombe. I don't want to see Andre Drummond getting minutes over Adem Bona, right? Maxey, VJ, McCain, Grimes, Adem Bona, Justin Edwards, even Johni, Broome, and Trendon, Watford, all guys right on 25, 24, and younger. I think all these guys have to play and play significant roles so that you can see what they can provide for you for the future and make decisions as you evaluate this young talent and maximize that young talent. I also think, when you're deciding to go this route, you have to fight the urge, especially for somebody like Daryl Morey, who we know loves to make the big splashy trade, the big splashy move. You have to fight the urge to make that all-in type of move. We talked about a Giannis trade the other day on the show, and I said I wouldn't do it because I want to develop this young talent. You have to fight the urge to trade a VJ Edgecombe, a Jared McCain, future picks for a star player, because if that doesn't work out, all of a sudden you didn't win and you have no young talent for the future, right? So I know it might be tempting if a star player asks out to want to move some of those young guys, but you got to just stay calm, stay the course, especially with that 2028 Clippers pick the Sixers have in their back pocket. Who knows what the Clippers look like in 2028? Harden will be gone. Kawhi will be gone. They just signed Bradley Beal. Chris Paul is back. Brooke Lopez. They have an old roster. That could be a huge pick they can use to draft another top player. You also cannot hold on to Embiid and Paul George for no reason. Now, I'm not saying you have to right now look to shop Joel Embiid and Paul George. You must trade him before the start of the season. That is not what I'm saying, right? I think you still can go through the season with those guys on the roster and maybe even the season after that. Like, you don't absolutely need to trade them. Maybe Paul George a little more than Joel Embiid. But what I'm saying here is if stuff does continue to go bad, right? Paul George can't stay healthy for another year, and he's not playing at the level you thought he would. Or even Embiid, if that knee really is cooked and he can't play the level you thought he would, he can't be out there on the floor, you can't just hold on to these guys because you're paying them a lot of money or because you have connections specifically to Joel Embiid. Again, I am a huge Joel Embiid guy. I think, he's one of the best players in this franchise history, and he drug this franchise out of the mud years ago. But you have to look at the situation you're in right now realistically. And if that's the best path forward and he's not producing, you can't just hold on to these guys because you give them money and because you trust them and because they've been around for a while. It also means possibly moving on from the combo, at least one of Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse. Now, I do like Nick Nurse as a coach. I think if you do go in this direction, which again, not a full-on rebuild, but a little bit of a retool, I think you can keep Nick Nurse around. But Daryl Morey, look, we kind of know what he is at this point. Like a guy that has had really good teams, has had some playoff success, but never been able to get that elusive NBA championship, and a guy that has often prioritized going after older vets and creating super teams and trying to make the big splashy move. Now, this offseason, he said he was going to prioritize getting younger, getting more athletic. The Sixers did do that, right? They did bring in some young players to surround this older core, but can he really commit to trading away an Embiid and a Paul George? I don't know if he can, and if they're bad this year, the Sixers might just say, you know what? If we're going to go in a new direction, let's just move on from these guys entirely. I think this route of going with the young guys works perfectly for Philadelphia because it's not a full-on rebuild, right? You're not saying, you know what? It's not working out. We don't have a lot of young talent. Let's go try to get some, right? And tank for a little bit. This isn't the process era where you have to go and do that. The Sixers already have a head start on this retooling. You already have some future draft capital but you also have a lot of really good young talent already on the roster. So reset and move forward in this new direction. Again, you don't need to tear everything down, and that's why it makes so much sense for Philadelphia. I really think this year, this season, and we talked about this before on the show, will be the deciding factor for the direction this team moves in the future. Now, me regardless, I said, and I'll stick by this, I want to prioritize the young talent. But for someone like Daryl Morey, if this team is good this year, say they, make it to the second round of the playoffs once again, but they lose, or maybe they even make a conference finals run, but they lose. If they fall short of their ultimate goal, I think Morey will once again want to keep this core around and prioritize winning the championship. And I can't really argue with it, especially if you get to the conference finals. You're so close. I could see why you want to do that. But I just believe the best course for this team is focusing on these young guys. As long as they don't trade away the young guys to make the all-in move, I'd be okay with it. But if you start trading away this young talent, man, I think that's a mistake. And if they're bad this year, I could see Morey, maybe even Nick Nurse being canned as the Sixers enter a new direction. That'll do it for today's 76ers Now. We do videos like this every single day, all year round. And look, the NBA season will be here before we know it. Training camp starts up in just over a month, and the NBA season in just over 2 months. So be sure to hit that sub button, lock us in so you never miss a video, and you're always caught up to date on everything going on with your Philadelphia 76ers.